Hello and welcome to my channel, Rhino here. When I last left you, Dr. Larry Pilevsky was ranting about the fact that some kids have medical problems, therefore vaccines cause them until proven otherwise. I mean, come on buddy, correlation does not prove causation is one of the first things you learn in any high school stats class. Here's a chart showing the correlation of the divorce rate in Maine with the per capita consumption of margarine. By your logic, until proven otherwise, eating margarine causes divorce in Maine, but only in Maine. He actually mentioned in a bit that I skipped that other scientists wouldn't so much as look at his research. So I searched through various journal search engines to see if I could find his peer-reviewed, published research that supports his conclusions that scientists laugh off. And nothing. As in not one single publication ever, whether it has to do with vaccines or otherwise. My conclusion from that is that this guy is just repeating the same old anti-vax propaganda, making money from endangering children, and whining that real scientists don't take him seriously, with his extensive history of 0 peer-reviewed publications. Again, I will be cutting out as much of their content as I can without diluting it too much, in order to cover my own ass. And as a side note, you should know that while typing my script, I misspelled scientists as scientits twice. So we all know where my mind is today. And with that in mind, let's dive in.
Dr. Pilevsky stated that we need to do more testing of vaccines that contain substances like Polysorbate 80 and assume that they are doing damage until proven otherwise.
That's not how science works. You see, in order to come to accurate conclusions, you have to leave your assumptions at the door and wait to see what the data shows. If you go in with predetermined assumptions, then you are more likely to interpret your data in a way that ends up agreeing with your assumptions. It's called confirmation bias, and it's a problem for everyone. Just as an example, I was at Walmart today. While waiting in line, I usually glance at the headlines on the tabloid magazines just out of boredom, and I wonder idly how much of it is actually true and how much is exaggeration. Today, when I was looking them over, the headlines were about Bill O'Reilly being an abusive, manipulative liar. I already don't like Bill O'Reilly, so I found myself thinking, yeah, I could see that, instead of my normal, I wonder how true this is. No matter how hard you try, every human being will go into a scientific experiment expecting a certain outcome. That is why peer review is so important. Your peers won't have the same assumptions as you, so are more likely to find the flaws that contradict those assumptions. And by the way, I forgot to mention in part 1, you look like a dropout from a low-budget porn flick who couldn't afford a tailored suit, so bought one from the thrift store that was 3 sizes too big.
According to the Material Safety and Data Sheet, the MSDS, on ScienceLab.com, Polysorbate 80 was tested for inhalation and ingestion and demonstrated to be slightly hazardous in the case of skin contact.
I have a couple problems here. Firstly, the MSDS system is made for people who are working with this chemical in their job every day. If you have a job that requires you working with chemicals, you need to be familiar with these safety sheets so that if there's an emergency involving a chemical, you know in advance how to deal with the emergency. It also outlines the type of personal protective equipment you need to use when working with these chemicals. So this is not a list of side effects of having minuscule amounts injected as part of a vaccine. This is for people who work with it in large quantities and might actually see a whole jug of Polysorbate 80. I mean, just look at the information you have right there on your screen. PS80 has an LD50 of 25,000 milligrams per kilogram. That means that for someone such as myself, weighing in at 90-ish kilograms, I would have to have 2.25 kilograms of it in my system in order to have a 50% chance of death. That's almost 5 pounds for my American friends. As to the toxic effects, remember where you're getting this information. This is a sheet intended for people who are exposed to it every day for long periods of time in large quantities. For any of those effects to be applicable in a vaccine scenario, they would have to get several shots every day for decades before they become apparent. Wow, I haven't even gotten through 30 seconds of your damn documentary. By the time I'm done with your series, I'm going to have enough material to write a whole pro-vax book.
The MSDS does not address the effects of Polysorbate 80 through injection.
Because it's not meant to. It's a workplace health and safety sheet meant to inform workers of the health risks of the chemical they're working with. What job are you aware of where people regularly run around injecting themselves with anything as part of the job? This would be like me going to an ice cream shop and complaining that I can't order escargot. If you want to know about the safety of Polysorbate 80 in vaccines, there are plenty of studies out there. Unfortunately for me, they all require payment to read, but they're definitely there. A search through the database of the Human Vaccines and Immunotherapeutics Journal for the term Polysorbate 80 safety yielded 667 articles. Again, I will concede that not all of those are specifically about the safety of PS80, but they are safety studies of vaccines containing PS80. So even if they aren't specifically testing PS80, if the PS80 was causing a reaction of some kind, it would be noticed in these studies.
Nevertheless, in the same toxicology section, under special remarks on chronic and toxic effects on humans, it states that polysorbate 80, and I quote, may cause adverse reproductive effects based on animal test data. No human data found. There appears to be a glaring lack of basic science research into the toxic effects of the vaccine ingredient polysorbate 80 on human health. Some argue that ingredients like polysorbate 80 in vaccines are safe and not dangerous, simply because they're present in vaccines in minuscule amounts. However, the fact remains that the CDC's mandated vaccine schedule tells doctors to give infants and children 49 doses of vaccines by the age of 6. The CDC vaccine excipient and media summary indicates that the DTaP, influenza, meningococcal, pneumococcal, rotavirus, and Tdap vaccines all contain polysorbate 80. What are the cumulative effects of multiple vaccine ingredients?
The cumulative effect so far seems to be a decrease in death rates of diseases that are vaccinated against. Vaccines have been around for ages with these surfactants in them, and their safety has been rigorously studied both before they were used on humans and after in the form of epidemiological studies. There are some extremely unlikely serious negative side effects from vaccines, but the chances of one of these events is significantly smaller than the chances of death by an ordinary daily activity like a car accident. The odds of dying in a car accident in 2013 were 1 in 47,000. The odds of having a severe vaccine reaction are less than 1 in a million. The odds of your child being seriously injured by an infectious disease are much higher than being injured by a vaccine. So if you just want to play the odds, then vaccination is definitely the safer way to go.
According to the MSDS, polysorbate 80 may cause cancer based on animal test data and may be mutagenic.
In large amounts at regular exposure. For fuck's sake, guy, having a smoke detector in your house is probably more mutagenic than the amount of PS80 in vaccines.
Should the vaccine manufacturers and the FDA be required to provide credible scientific evidence that it is safe to include polysorbate 80 in vaccines given to adults and children?
Absolutely. And they have. Next subject, please.
Another ingredient in many vaccines which has already been mentioned many times is aluminum. According to the CDC, aluminum is present in Hep A, Hep B, DTaP, Tdap, Haemophilus influenza type B, the Hib, HPV, and pneumococcal vaccines. Aluminum is put into vaccines as an adjuvant or an additive that helps them work better.
Unless it's a live viral vaccine.
Jesus fucking Christ, that lady looks like Alan Rusko from that one Doctor Who episode fucked a non-green Wicked Witch of the West while using her broom as a condom. Sorry, she might be a valid human being with something worth listening to just say. Please go on.
It's used as an adjuvant, and an adjuvant is something to boost the immune response, right? So a live virus, like the chickenpox vaccine, like MMR, those are all live viruses. So they can, and the shingles vaccine. So one of the side effects of those vaccines is that they cause those diseases. And the shingles vaccine just had to add that, By the way, the shingles vaccine, one of the side effects may be shingles.
Holy fucking fuck. I can barely concentrate on what she's saying with her awkward face making those weird spasms. Is she a vaccine-injured person who contracted autism of the face? Anywho, vaccines don't cause the diseases. They contain bits of the diseases that they immunize against, weakened or dead forms, which allow our immune system to react to them before they cause the disease. Now, I have a feeling she's going to start talking about shedding soon, and basically the shedding thing would only ever be a problem if you're visiting someone with advanced AIDS or something who has to live in a clean room, or something similar to that. I will link down below to an article published in the infectious disease section of The Lancet, which basically points out that even if shedding were as prevalent as anti-vaxxers would have you believe, the version of the disease that is being spread is a weakened form, which would be a much better version of the disease to get than the full strength of the wild one. Does that really come as a surprise to anyone, though? Like, I'd rather have my immune system fight off a half-dead virus than a perfectly healthy wild one. Now, she does go on to talk about aluminum provoking your immune system into responding to a dead virus vaccine, and then throws out the word fluoride, as if there's a bunch of fluoride in the vaccine with the aluminum. Now, unfortunately for her, I couldn't find anything to suggest that there's fluoride in vaccines, like, on either side of the debate. Not even the quackiest of the quacks is suggesting that there is fluoride in vaccines. So as it turns out, as hard as this is to believe, this lady is even crazier than she looks, and is using her terrifying appearance combined with words that people in their target audience are already afraid of to try and shift those fears onto vaccines. Anyways, back to aluminum. Yeah, she wasn't entirely wrong. It does provoke the immune system. That's kinda why it's in them. That being said, like so many other scary-sounding chemicals you guys list, your average everyday healthy diet will see you ingesting more aluminum than you will ever see in vaccines. Infants receive a total of approximately 4.4 milligrams of aluminum in their first 6 months, while the amount they receive from breastfeeding in the same period weighs in at 7 milligrams. It gets worse if you formula feed, with 38 milligrams for them. Thinking of having a vegan baby? Soy formula-fed babies get a whopping 117 milligrams. So yeah, once again, being normal and healthy exposes the kids to far greater quantities of this horrible, horrible toxin than any vaccine ever will. They also cut briefly to Dr. Deborah Gambrell, who is a doctor of osteopathic medicine, which is basically the part of chiropractic that's actually science-based. But all she does is name-drop other scientists who probably wouldn't have agreed to be in this documentary, like Dr. Christopher Exley, who has studied aluminum toxicity for over 30 years, and who does question whether or not it is a safe ingredient in vaccines. I thought that the opinion of someone who has specifically studied the toxicity of aluminum would be a great person to cite while discussing vaccines, so I contacted him. He replied very promptly, and here's the important part of what he said. I am certainly not against vaccination. There are links between human exposure to aluminum and many human conditions, including allergies and autoimmune diseases. Some of these links seem to be stronger in some instances where exposure to aluminum is through an aluminum adjuvant in a vaccine, but they are not exclusive to this exposure route. Oh yeah, and they also promote a book called Vaccines and Autoimmunity by a Dr. Yehuda Shoenfeld, who is definitely anti-vax. The problem is he uses flawed methods to come to his conclusions, links with that information down below, and also the book is super cheap, ringing in at only $152 on Amazon, down to $131 if you get the Kindle version. Oh wait, those are the Amazon.ca prices. Things are usually cheaper on Amazon.com, so let's see. Oh yeah, great deal. It's only $104 for hardcover and $96 for Kindle. What a bargain! But remember guys, Big Pharma only wants you to vaccinate so they can keep making money. The anti-vaxxers definitely have nothing to gain from you believing them. Now, I'm skipping the rest of the aluminum bits, but I just wanted you to hear this. They went back to Larry Palevsky, everyone's favorite doctor who doesn't understand the burden of proof. Here he is trying to say a complicated word, like bacteria.
It is bound tightly to vaccine bacteria.
Like, they couldn't have stopped him and just said, hey, buddy, can you just say that sentence again so that it doesn't sound like you're a third grader trying to read the word for the first time? Not that that affects the quality of his arguments at all. They're shit regardless of how poorly he says bacteria.
When you eat aluminum...
Now, okay, I know I said like 2 seconds ago that I was going to skip the rest of the aluminum, but then I saw Crazy Lady here again, and she just so obviously doesn't know what she's talking about that I couldn't resist putting her back in. It's a bit in a documentary that wants you to endanger your children that can easily be laughed at, so I took my opportunity to laugh at it.
Or you eat other toxins. You're open from your mouth to your rectum. The digestive system is an open system.
Yeah.
It's not, there should be an intact barrier
Right.
protecting whatever we eat to go directly into the bloodstream,
True.
right? So
Now, so far, I don't really have anything to say about what she is saying, but just listen to her necklaces jingling on the microphone. Like, once again, nobody thought to say, hey, maybe take those off so we can actually sound like professionals. Let's start that again from the top. Okay, let's go. Take 2. You know, I can just picture her response to that, like, no, my magic healing crystals are in this necklace. They keep me safe from the aluminum that I eat from pears.
theoretically, you're not absorbing much aluminum when you eat it. You excrete it in your stool. It's still not good, and I don't recommend it.
There's that jingle again. But what do you mean you don't recommend it? Like, How would you avoid it? It's in pretty much everything. It's not like it's just a seasoning that we add to food like salt to make it taste better. It's just there already in the food.
But ingesting is very different than injecting, where you also have things like Polysorbate 80, things that actually open your blood-brain barrier, so they open all these tight junctions, and you're getting them directly into your bloodstream, especially when you're injecting.
Are you saying that there's another way of putting things directly into your bloodstream other than injecting? I mean, I can't believe they kept this lady in the documentary. She clearly doesn't know what she's talking about, and she looks like a crazy old cat lady to boot. It's like her face stole Mr. Fantastic's elastic stretching capabilities and doesn't quite know how to stay in normal face limits anymore.
How much aluminum is safe? This is something I want us to talk about.
Okay, I lied again. Here's more about aluminum. But again, this guy is so laughable that I thought keeping him in was probably more harmful to the anti-vax case, so let's see what intelligent things he will say.
There's an FDA document that's live today, it's been up since 2000, that says not to exceed 5 micrograms per kilogram per day, or you can cause neurological problems and bone deposition.
Oh fuck, what was that big word again? Almost got it. Almost got it. And bone deposition. Yeah, bone deposition. Nailed it. Yeah.
And probably other problems.
And probably other problems. That could literally be said about anything at all. And it doesn't even have to be a bad thing. Just anything. You just won the lottery? Sure, solved all your debt problems, but it will probably cause other problems, like obscure relatives needing handouts. You just had a baby? How wonderful, congratulations! But that will probably cause other problems, mostly poop and sleep deprivation related. You built a garden? That's nice, but it'll cause other problems, like now you have to weed the garden.
Because, you know, when you eat food and dirt and whatever, there's toxins.
When you eat food and dirt and whatever. What the hell is up with this guy? Would you ever want to go to dinner at his house? For our first course, we have some food. Main course will be dirt, and dessert is just whatever, but it's not food or dirt. You get to guess. It's my poop. And you know what? They keep bringing up the difference between injected and ingested aluminum, so I'll address that too. So, basically, I'm a huge fucking liar. I mean, I'm nowhere near as big a liar as the guys in this documentary, but yeah, I lie about how much time of yours I'm gonna waste. They lie about stuff that will put your children in danger, so yeah, there's that.
Dr. Thomas just mentioned the term parenteral, and he also mentioned an FDA document that indicates the safe daily aluminum limit. Neil Miller also referenced the same FDA safety level. I found the document. According to the FDA's Code of Federal Regulations, CFR Title 21, Volume 4, posted at fda.gov, the FDA maximum allowance for parenteral aluminum received is 25 micrograms per day.
No, it isn't. That is a flat-out lie. Thank you, though, for making that document so easy to find. I will provide a legible picture so you can read it for yourself. I'll also provide a link in the description so you can go to it and read it on the FDA website. Now, it seems to me like you guys only actually provide sources for things that are actual flat-out lies. You don't provide sources for any of your, kind of generic claims, but when you're making a bald-faced lie, there's the source. It's like you're saying, oh, look, we have the source, and it's in this little picture that, it's too blurry for you to actually read, but we have the source in our video, so clearly we wouldn't be lying about that, so there's no need for you to go and check it. It's like a reverse psychology thing almost. So anyways, back to the FDA thing. It's actually 25 micrograms of aluminum per liter of solution for large volume parenterals, or LVPs. Vaccines are not LVPs. To be an LVP, it must be administered in a quantity of no less than 100 milliliters. Here's a picture of a baby getting medicine through an oral syringe. That looks like a fairly large one, so it might be about 10 milliliters. Have you ever seen anyone injected with a vaccine from a syringe larger than that? Here's a picture of a 100 milliliter syringe. I take needles pretty well, but if a nurse walked up to me with that, I'd probably either faint or run out the door. Why is this difference important? Because healthy kidneys filter out aluminum, and doctors know how fast they can filter it. So if you are being fed through an IV solution, it is important that you don't get more than a certain amount of aluminum for every liter of solution to ensure that your kidneys can keep up with the filtering. In a small volume parenteral, the amount of aluminum can be significantly higher, as you're not getting a constant influx of fresh aluminum for several hours, and as such your kidneys have plenty of time to filter it out before any negative effects are experienced. Okay, so now that we've determined that you are lying to our faces while making it easy to find the document demonstrating that you're lying, let's read that document a bit further to see what else it has to say. Okay, looks like they are fully aware of the fact that kidneys have to be in working order for them to properly filter aluminum. What's this down at the bottom? Looks like the amount of aluminum that's safe for someone with impaired kidney function is 4 to 5 micrograms per kilogram per day. In other words, someone with bad kidneys would probably not be given a shot containing aluminum. Also, at 4 micrograms per kilogram per day, the safe aluminum threshold passes your stated 25 micrograms per day at 9 kilograms or 20 pounds. And that's for a person with impaired kidneys, not a healthy person.
As Dr. Thomas mentioned, parenteral means anything not given orally, so vaccines are considered to be parenteral. According to the FDA regulation, the maximum amount of aluminum per kilogram of weight to give to a person is up to 5 micrograms.
Where was that? Was that the bit where it was saying that was the maximum for someone with impaired kidneys? Are you going to mention that or just let it slide as if it's for all healthy people? Also, that statement very clearly does not match up with what you said literally 1 sentence ago. Could you at least stay internally consistent with your lies?
And any product that has more than 25 micrograms of aluminum is supposed to have a warning label stating that, and I quote, aluminum may be toxic to the central nervous system and to the bones, which Dr. Thomas just mentioned. However, vaccines, for some reason, are not required to have this label and are not required to follow the maximum dosage of 25 micrograms.
Because, as I stated before, the 25 microgram limit is for LVPs, not SVPs. A vaccine is an SVP.
I got a degree in accounting at Baylor University, and my father was actually a math major at Baylor, so humor me for a second and let's go on a math journey together, okay? Let's do some math.
No offense, but you don't look capable of obtaining a degree of any kind. You do have the washed-up porn star look going, though, and I don't see what an accounting or math degree has to do with vaccines, but I would be willing to bet that it's all resting on your blatant lie about the 25 microgram limit.
Following the 5 micrograms per kilogram maximum allowable parenteral dose of aluminum,
for solutions greater than 100 milliliters, which vaccines are not,
the following are examples of weight with their corresponding maximum levels of aluminum per the FDA.
For people with impaired kidney function.
An 8-pound baby
with impaired kidneys
would be 18.16 micrograms of aluminum. A 15-pound baby
with impaired kidneys
would be 34.05 micrograms of aluminum. 30-pound toddler
with impaired Oh, you get the fucking idea. Doesn't sound as scary when you add the truth to it. He then goes on to list how much aluminum is in different vaccines, and shocker, it's more than the recommended daily dosage for people with impaired kidneys.
In addition, at well-child checkups, it's common for 2-month, 4-month, 6-month appointments to include up to 8 vaccinations that add up to more than 1,000 micrograms of aluminum. According to the FDA limits, that amount isn't even safe for a 350-pound adult.
Now that wouldn't even make any sense if you were telling the truth about the maximum daily dosage. Let's do the math, Mr. Accounting Degree with Math Major Dad. 6 months is about 180 days. For your 350-pound adult, the safe limit is 790 micrograms per day, which would mean that over the course of 6 months, he could safely have over 140,000 micrograms of aluminum injected if his kidneys were failing. So your math is off by a factor of 140. Remind me not to let you do my taxes. That's all for today. I think if I keep going with this guy, he might give me impaired kidney function. 2 parts for my video, and I'm not even halfway through this 1 episode of 7. I will probably be taking a break from this series for a bit, but I think I will get back to it, if only to finish with the episode I started. Also, the busy season's starting up at my real job now, so the good news is I get to have grocery money again. Yay! The bad news is I will have less time for videos. So my uploads may drop to around 1 or 2 videos per month, but I'm not going away. Busy season ends around October or November, so my uploads will pick back up in late fall or early winter. So remember to inject yourself with about 140,000 micrograms of aluminum until next fall, and we can talk about the results then. See ya!